Hey guys, welcome back to another video from PPPD, Professors Providing Professional Development. Don't adjust the color on your screen. Since we last talked, I decided that my hair was just too boring, and so now it's magenta. At least that's what
She
I'm
matches
told.
my shirt.
That's true. We did this on purpose. Today we want to talk a little bit about picture books and picture storybooks. As Karen and I were preparing for this, we were talking about the fact that while I've always made a distinction between picture books and picture storybooks, she never has. And I think it's a matter of what you learn and how you learn it along the way. And I just remember my professor, the first lecture was there's a difference between the two, that picture books can be concept books like alphabet books, counting books, concept books. It can be the limited vocabulary and the controlled vocabulary books like the Dr. Seuss. But a picture storybook is a different kind of critter where the text and the illustration combine in such a way that the sum is greater than the two parts. I don't really think that it matters because different people bring different backgrounds, different perspectives here. But we will be using the term picture books. And basically, we're going to be talking about those kinds of picture books that tell stories along the way. So we've got some criteria that we want to review with you. And we also then will follow this up with a couple PowerPoints in the next couple probably weeks that kind of supplement what we're going to talk about today. So our first criteria asks the question, is something of significance said to the child? What is the theme? Now, we've talked about theme a few times, and you're probably getting tired of listening to us, but nonetheless, here's the king of all picture books right here, Where the Wild Things Are. And we talked about all the different possible themes that there are in a book like this. So when we're looking at what books do we share with kids, what books do we invest in, what books do we add to the classroom and the school library, one of the things we're asking is it something significant? A mother's love is constant. A parent will always love you. It's possible to conquer your fears. Think about those themes and how important they are to kids. So that's the first question that we can ask when we're evaluating picture books.
Next is, can the youngster follow the story better because of illustrations? So do illustrations aid in the story? And one way, a great example of this to start out, to really kind of evaluate how this works, is to use wordless picture books, because that's got to be the whole purpose of a book like this. So we have Flotsam, and of course this is a wordless picture book. And so through the story, you have to follow along, and the child can tell what's happening just by looking at the story. So once you kind of look at something like this, you can then look at any other picture book and see, do they have illustrations that support the text, that enhance the text, and could they kind of get the gist of the story without the text on the page?
We're always cognizant of this kind of thing here, especially with all of the English language learners, English as a second language learners that we've got in our schools, because often kids won't have the words. Won't be able to read the words or decode the words. Textless picture books allow that to happen because language is not an impediment. Sending the book home where parents may not have the skills either will not be an impediment, because the story can be told, and it can be told in whatever language that child, that family is comfortable with. So we love wordless picture books, and I'm sure we'll probably talk more about those at different points as we're doing these videos. The next question says, is the audience, thank you, she had pointed because it's in small type.
We were losing our space.
Is the audience for the book understood and respected, or does the book condescend, talk down to kids? I think when you look at celebrity picture books, one of our favorite things to kind of talk about, that you often get that condescension because the idea is, well, kids really aren't that smart, so we need to use really small words that they're going to get. But Maurice Sendak and other authors in the field understand that kids are a lot smarter sometimes than we give them credit for. This is Everybody Needs a Rock. It's the book that I read first day of children's literature, whether I do it online or I do it in person. It's by Bird Baylor. There we go. Bird Baylor and Peter Parnell. For some reason
I
or
said
another,
it, so it wouldn't do that. So I don't know.
Yeah, computer glitches. What can we say? We're not John and Hank.
We used the phone last time. We're going back to the
Karen
computer.
And Terry. What can we say? Anyhow, so this is Everybody Needs Rock, Bird Baylor, Peter Parnell. The illustrations are incredible, all done in earth tones and pencil drawings. But it's the text that says, you'll have to make up your own mind. You'll know. And talks to kids as if they're part of the story, as if they can then go out, find their own rock, make it into a friend. Just absolutely wonderful. Definitely does not condescend to readers.
The next one is, do the pictures develop and enhance character development? I think a good one for this is The Spider and the Fly by the one that Tony
Dieterlitzy.
There we go. Because, very quickly, I'll show you two illustrations. Or one. Here's one. Okay, so there we go. Here's our little fly and the spider. So huge. Okay, we see the really big difference. But then, look at the close-up of the fly. Very easy to see that she's dainty. She's fragile. And so here's the fly coming into the lair of this creepy, smarmy-looking villain of the story, the spider. And so this picture book does a great job of really, by the illustrations alone, letting you see the characteristics of our characters.
And that book is also good for the next criteria, Karen.
Okay, which is, oh, sorry, yes, thank you.
That's okay.
Mood and tone. So you can very easily, another illustrator would, of course, do this a different way. However, using black and whites, sketchy pencil type drawings really adds to the mood and tone and creepiness of this story. Also, look, they did the silent film type illustration layout for like every other page or so. But the illustrations in this one really, really add to the creepiness. Look, there are ghosts in here of past flies that have been caught in the web. And so that's strictly illustration showing that and giving clues to our reader of that there is death in this story.
And Karen said, different illustrators will approach this differently. Mo Willems, That Is Not a Good Idea, has the same kind of silent movie thing with the text on it, but it's done in bright colors with 3 tiny little heads down beneath kind of a Greek chorus. And so you go from black and white to full color, and yet the points are still being made. I think it's just wonderful to see how different authors, different illustrators approach some of the same things. We're going to tackle next everything that's physical about the book. And we have a dear friend, John Shue, Mr. Schumacher, who talks about things like he likes to pick up a book and he likes to stroke the stickers.
And he hugs it.
And then he smells it. We don't quite go that far, although I do want to point out there is a sticker on this book. We're going to talk about awards in children's books soon. This sticker, though, doesn't say Caldecott, doesn't say Newbery. It says this book is too dumb to win an award. So not all stickers created equally. So looking at everything physically about the book is important. So we're going to kind of talk you through the different components of a book in terms of its physicality.
And so that's the cover. Okay, so, where are we going to first here? Oh, the cover. Okay.
Mr. Tiger Goes Wild.
We were going to show that. Yes, sorry. There again, we get hiccups here. So here's a good example of a cool cover. Not all of them do this, but Where the Wild Things Are does this too. So, all right, so when you open this up, we get a nice 2-page spread, and there's Where the Wild Things Are does the same thing. Not all of them do that.
Yeah, some of them are kind of, and again, we're not saying one's better than the other. No. We're just saying you're spending $17.99 on a book. You ought to take a look at the cover and how that cover is going to hold up, how it's going to introduce kids to the book. What happens if a kid picks the book up backwards, which young readers will do? Is there still something there that draws them into the book, or is the back of the book a review?
Yeah.
Which I would love to see, but I'm not sure how many kids would.
Right. So, here's another. This is Dan Santat, one of his earlier books, Carnivores. It's hilarious. The book trailer for this, is hysterical as well. But see, on the front, they're in a meat tray wrapped up, and the back cover is like the bottom of a meat tray. And so like there's the plastic wrap, see, on the bottom and everything. So some of them are really clever.
After we take a look at the cover, we want to find out what happens when you take the cover off a book. In classroom libraries, chances are these covers are not going to last a long time unless you laminate the living daylights out of them.
And a lot of times librarians will take those off and use for bulletin board book displays.
So what happens when you take the cover off? In the case of the Dumb Bunnies, and this is Dave Pilkey, it says by pseudonym, hello, but it's Dave Pilkey, and that's okay. That even when you lose the cover, you still have underneath the hardcover version of the book still has a reproduction of what the actual paper cover is. Again, one extra thing to take a look at.
So that's a really great thing, because that way you can get rid of that and still have like the barcode and everything on this book. Totally doable. However, here, I love this book, Mr. Tiger Goes Wild. Inside, when you take that off, this is what you get. Now, well, there's still stuff on there, which we'll talk about later, but this might not be a great thing to just put without this, because the kid's not going to necessarily know without looking on the spine what the book is.
It's still better than books that when you pull off the outer cover have nothing underneath. Right. And some still do. Mostly that's older books, but we're still seeing some of this.
This is going to take us... Oh, did you want to say something else
about
cover? Okay, so this is going to take us into end papers. End papers are the papers that are in the very first page when you open up that cover. It's on the back of the cover. It covers up the ugly fold over that puts the picture on the cardboard. So they had to have something to cover that up. So that's what the end papers are. So for instance, Mr. Tiger Goes Wild. He starts out, he's in a city. So we've got like bricks for a city. Now at the end, it's the forest. Not all books have different end papers.
But again, $17.99. We want that.
For instance, we love I Am Bear. The end papers are plain, but they are special in the sense that they coordinate with the inside or with the cover of the book and illustrations inside. Cheaper publications, very possibly just have plain white end papers.
Once we get beyond the end papers, we look at the title page. This is a reissue of Mary Pope Osborne's Moon Horse. 1991 is the original publication, and so it's just been reissued. And here's the title page. And the title page gives you a sense of what's going to happen in the book. Not only do you see the moon horse, but you see the different constellations, both here and on the opposite page as well. So we want to look at title pages that kind of, again, provide some kind of entree into the text.
Oh, we talked about end papers already.
Yeah, so binding.
Okay, binding. All right, so bindings, there you'll see several different bindings. In fact, when we were just looking at another one, we were looking at this one, and it is Reinforced Trade Edition. All right, so there are many different bindings. There's paperback binding, generally just going to be stapled there at the end. There's library binding, plain hardback binding, and then here's reinforced trade binding. Okay, so there's different purposes for these bindings. How long is this book going to last for you? Is it a Caldecott winner? If so, you're going to want it in your collection for years and years and years. It might be worth spending the little extra money to get that library binding, because that has some extra oomph into there. It's not just glued pages along that spine. It's very possibly sewn in to where it will allow multiple openings and closings. And so, like Terry has mentioned, it's one of those things. Whenever this happens, is it going to pull apart from your spine because it's just glued in? So binding is important. Go ahead.
I was going to say I didn't always know that, which is why I have a $4.95 paperbook edition of Peter's Chair. The good news is I'm just about the only one who's ever handled it since I bought it. So it's still in one piece. But eventually one day it's going to open and the pages are going to be loose and they're going to start falling out, in which case now I have a wonderful activity I can do with kids, put the book in chronological order for me, but I don't have the book itself still in good shape. So again, $17.99 versus $4.95. It depends on how often I'm going to use it, whether it's going to go into general circulation in a classroom or a library, how long I expect to have this book.
So on book fairs, librarians are given the choice to take books from the book fair or money, a percentage of the sales. A lot of people will go straight for the books because you get more value in books than you do your percentage of sales. However, that's simply trade binding. Those are not meant to last for years and years and years. And so it's not always the best bang for your buck.
Right.
So.
After we look at, again, almost all outside kind of things, it's time to start looking at things like the size and spacing of the illustrations. And by the way, for each and every one of these criteria, we could simply have used Where the Wild Things Are. And in our face-to-face classes, that's often what we do. We require students each to have a copy or to share a copy at a table, and we take them through each criteria and show them how they apply to Where the Wild Things Are. But we wanted to let you know that we have read some other books and to talk about some new books as well. This is a brand new book by Steve Weisberg. It's called You Must Be This Tall. And when it comes to the size and the spacing of the pictures, the book begins with almost little thumbnail sketches as we meet our two main characters who want to go ride the Rattler. Notice that huge change. And that's to give you some idea of how terrifying this roller coaster will be. Well, the problem with the Rattler is you must be this tall to ride. And one of our characters is, and another one, as you can see, sadly, is not. And how they go about solving that problem is part and parcel of what makes this just an hysterical book to read and to share aloud, or even just to browse yourself. So the size and spacing of the pictures works to kind of underscore what's going on, what's important to look at, where the story's going to go from here.
And then
we look at
text placement.
And we look at text placement. And when you look at I Am Bear, I think
we were going to do the slowly or the slow and tall. Or
well, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. See, we're two halves of the same brain. This is called The Opposite Zoo. And one of the things I love is this is a creature that's tall. Notice that the type is tall. This is one that is short. Typeface is short. And as you turn the page, you're going to see
shy is real little.
Bold.
Big.
So again, the text placement, the typeface, and the type font, all of this kind of plays into what's going on in terms of typeface. One of the things that I've seen, and it's been particularly evident in celebrity books again, is the use of cursive as the typeface. I read a wonderful book about a bedtime ritual, but it was all in cursive, and I could just see holding that up with kids who've never seen cursive print and them saying, what's that? So font, typeface, excuse me, those things all count.
So spine, very easily. What's good about look at a spine is make sure it has all the pertinent information, even underneath the dust jacket. So you want to make sure that you have all your information on the spine. And then gutter. The gutter is the inside area of your picture book. You want to make sure that it flows okay. Things aren't going to be lost and cut off. See, this is really good because both illustrations fit on the side of the page. There is one in here that has he's in the gutter, but look how well that is done. It's not disproportionate on either side. It blends into the next page just perfectly.
We call this a double page spread, sometimes abbreviated as DPS, not Department of Public Safety, but double page spread. And that gutter is the line down the middle. In journalism, we're always taught to make sure that if you have photos or illustrations, that the gutter doesn't cut somebody's head in half or somebody's arm off. And you can see that artists who really do plan out their books have a way of dealing with those gutters, either by putting illustration on one side and text on the other, and that's fine, or when they cross over the gutter, as they do in Where the Wild Things Are, as they do in I Am Bear, making sure that you don't lose anything along the way. We talk about how good the paper is, quality paper, and I don't know that we've mentioned that, but I have some particular things that I like to look at when it comes to paper. I like flat rather than glossy paper and kind of an off-white background, because often I would be reading it under fluorescent lights like I am right now. And if I have a glossy page, I always have to be sure that I've got the pages angled in such a way that there's not going to be a glare. And as somebody who wears glasses, Karen too, sometimes that glare can be absolutely really bad.
So tilt yours. So here's mine. I'm getting glare.
Yeah, see it
yours
doesn't.
Is pretty. Yours
mine's
is much better.
Much better.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and Karen's already shown it to you, we want paper that is heavy enough that we can do things like this, because while we don't often do this, kids do. And growing up, I had the little golden books, the ones you could buy at the grocery store. And back when I was young, I'm sure they were 25 cents. I don't think they were much more than that, because we didn't have a lot of money for books, but I had them. The problem with little golden books is if you picked up a page like that, it pretty much ended up in your hand. They were tissue paper thin. Yeah. You could read almost the entire book from the beginning to the end. So we want to leave you with the idea that when it comes to everything that's physical, all these criteria, that while you may not find a book that does everything really well, you want to be looking for those books that do it well. One of the things that you can do to make sure that that's going to happen is to depend on reviews.
Right. And, there are certain things to look for certain places to go for reviews. Of course, there are the main journals, Book List, School Library Journal, Horn Book. They all do a great job of reviewing picture books, picture storybooks. And so look for those official reviews. What we don't want to rely on when we're looking for books to purchase for our school and library are Goodreads reviews, Amazon customer reviews, Shelfari, Library Thing, things like that. Because those, you don't know who. It's like we were talking about website evaluation and stuff. You got to make sure the people that are putting up these websites know what they're talking about. So it's the same thing. The reviews are as good as the person writing them. And so you don't know who the person, how they're trained. I mean, so you want to be careful of those type of customer reviews. There are certain blogs that are, of course, extremely helpful when it comes to reviewing picture books. The one that is on School Library Journal online, 100 Scope Notes, which is Travis Jonkers. Mr. Shoe Reads, which is John Schumacher. Nerdy Book Club, because those all have people that are educators and librarians writing those reviews. Also, you can look at places like Twitter and Facebook, because like Terry and I, when we are reading our books, we put our stuff on Twitter and Facebook. Now, we have blogs, but I got to tell you, Twitter and Facebook's a lot faster. And so we can do our 1 or 2 sentences about the book and what we like about the book and get it out there immediately, rather than letting them pile up and do each individual blog post. So you can, on Facebook and Twitter, you can look at the people that are talking about books and, research who they are and start following them, and know that there are people that are go-tos for picture books.
There are people that if they say, here's a book you need to have, I know I need to have that book. because I know enough about them. I know their kind of reviewing history, if you will. If Karen says this is a book I need to have, I know that's a book I need to have. If Donalyn Miller loves it, if Paul Hankins loves it, if Colby Sharp loves it, and I'm just basically scratching the tip here. There are lots and lots and lots of other people whose reviews on Twitter, on Facebook, on Tumblr, on other forms of social media, I love and respect. And I hope that, that Karen and I are like that for other people too, because what we want to do is as soon as we read a book, we want to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
I keep coming back to this book because this is one that
that
arrived today. We've been wanting to see it for a long time. And so I read it, and then after lunch, Karen read it, and then our boss read it, and then one of our other colleagues read it. And it's made the rounds, and pretty soon it will go out on the chalk ledge in our conference room, where it will stay for a couple weeks for people who want to take a look at it, because we like to share these kinds of things. So if I have to think, do I want to spend $17.99 on a book? I can look at one book like this, and I can go through, is something of significance said to the child? Yes. What are the end papers like? Well, they're tattoos. What happens when I take the cover off? What am I left with? I'm still left with a great cover. So I look at things like this as I'm trying to decide which books do I want, which books do I want to share with others, which books do I want to make part of presentations that I'm going to do. The final piece that we look at, and we're going to do this in a separate video, has to do with art and illustration. So we're going to talk in a separate, probably PowerPoint, because we think that's a good way to do it, about shape, line, color, texture, media, technique, composition. There are lots of things that are involved in illustration in art. We are not artists, we are not art experts by any stretch of the imagination, but we can apply those visual elements of art to books and then point out to you, here are some really great things for you to consider. And in turn, you can do this with kids. So we're hoping that not only are we talking to you, we hope that you then in turn are talking to other teachers, other colleagues, and to your students, and make them more aware of the need to be critical readers, but also critical before they even start reading the book about what it is that they hold in their hands.
Right. So remember to also be looking for the supplemental PowerPoints that will be available. We can put the link in the description whenever we have those up, but that will be up at our slide shares that we both have, and I'll try and put the link on the bottom again.
So thanks, everybody. I think our next video is going to be about nonfiction, and we're waiting to hear from you. We certainly have lots of topics we haven't even begun to talk about, but we're waiting to hear from you about what you would find useful and valuable in these videos. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.